Well, everybody, I have some big news to share with you about this podcast. Some exciting things coming up. This episode is going to be very short and very different than normal episodes, just because I want to talk to you today about where we're going in the future on this podcast. I have some exciting things coming up. I cannot wait to share them with you. Let's not hesitate. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Strength, Yoga, and Freedom podcast. My name is Justin. This is the podcast where we use the philosophy of yoga in a very practical and very everyday way to take one small step at a time to become happier people. Now, happier people, happier, happy, happiest, whatever version of the word you want to use, the connotation of the word happiness for you might mean something different from someone else. But really, the version of happiness you're coming into contact with is going to be directly tied to purpose. And that's something we also are driving forward with in this podcast, purpose. You see, purpose in yoga, or dharma, which is our purpose, is something that we know we're called for in this life. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be the job that you're doing, like the job that you do to make money, to earn income, to feed yourself or your family. That doesn't always mean that's your purpose. It could just be something like that painting you're working on, or that puzzle you're putting together, or the children you're raising, or the family you have, or you're traveling, or whatever it is, your purpose. And when you start to hone in on your purpose and you start to take actions based on what you know your purpose is all about, boy, your life can change. And that's what's happened to me since I've started this podcast, this YouTube channel, this community over a year ago. And I want to talk to you about where we've been and where we're going right now. You see, the Strength, Yoga, and Freedom community has always been it was born out of and has always been driven out of a sense and a desire for healing. And one thing that I never really realized would ever happen is the amount of healing that personally I have had just in researching the information, doing the work and studying and continuing to study the philosophy of yoga in that practical way. And I never realized not only are we working together in healing, our healing journeys together, but it's also affecting me personally. And so I cannot be more grateful to all of you who have either been on this journey from the beginning, or you've just joined, or maybe you've been on it halfway. It doesn't matter. You're part of it. And I want to thank you for being here for any amount of that, because it feels for me personally like I'm not walking alone in this. And none of us are alone. We're all walking through this and down this road of purpose together. So that's where this whole thing started. It was out of a desire for healing. And throughout this whole journey, I wanted to look back. When I first started this YouTube channel, if you go back, you will notice the first videos. We're in 2021. They were in the fall of 2021. In this very room is where I started to film things, and I was using different technology then, of course, because we know things evolve. But it ultimately became trial and error through the whole thing. But I decided after that initial period to launch my 6 minutes a day, a journey to your higher self coaching program, which started in June of last year, 2022. And it lasted for quite some time. And once that journey to a higher self program ended, I decided to keep that format going in a podcast format. So instead of me doing a video and a training every day, which I did in that 6 minutes a day, I changed it to 2 days a week. And I would launch podcast episodes 2 days a week. I would record yoga videos once a week, and I would put all of those up on the YouTube channel, and I would put the podcasts on your favorite podcast platform. And that was really good for a while, and I got into the groove of things, and I started to really understand what video production was like and how this all worked, right? And so The purpose of doing that was to combine the practice off of the mat, which is this teaching, these tools I give you, the science backed research, and the philosophy and the experience and all that stuff that comes from what I teach, along with the physical practice of yoga. As you know, I am a physical yoga teacher. I teach yoga physically on here, and I teach in studio as well. And so I wanted to combine those two things because they are one. They are one in the same. The real practice of yoga is not just being on your mat sweating and doing warrior ones or doing, a pigeon pose. The real practice of yoga combines that with how you're living your life day to day. And so that remains my core vision for this community, combining what we do on the mat to what we're doing off of the mat. So there are things that are going to be coming up that I want to kind of streamline. And so I want to tell you this before I tell you what's going on and what's coming up. Since launching this podcast and recording yoga classes on YouTube since 2021 into 2022, the 6 minutes a day series started, where I gave you those micro lessons that can allow anyone to put kind of a different spin onto how they handle everyday life with tools and practices that anyone willing to can employ. And all you have to do is go back on the YouTube channel or on the podcast, and you'll find the 6 minutes a day. They're at the very beginning. And then when I started to do 2 episodes per week, it was still flowing. We were still going. And then I moved it down to doing 1 episode per week a couple months ago. But when I looked back on all of this recently, I thought, oh my gosh, over 130 episodes of the Strength, Yoga, and Freedom podcast, just the podcast, had been produced in the past year between the 6 minutes a day and the weekly episodes, the bi-weekly, every 2 times a week episodes, and then all the rewind episodes that we had on the podcast as well. And so I decided that I needed to record podcast episodes with better audio, with better video, other software, so that I could broadcast this platform to you simultaneously like I did in 6 minutes a day. Because for a while, all I was doing podcast episodes and yoga videos on YouTube. Then I decided to make sure the podcast episodes were on YouTube at the same time. And then I started filming myself talk to you as I'm recording the podcast, which is what's going on right now. So all of that has evolved. And so with that being said, I'm really excited to say that over 2,000 plays between podcast app and YouTube have happened with the Strength, Yoga, and Freedom podcast, which I can't be more excited about. 2,000 is a big number, and I'm happy with just 2. But 2,000 is phenomenal. And if it reached anyone and someone took something from it down the path of healing, that's all that my heart has ever wanted. So with all of these successes that I believe are successes, because I believe that everything you do every single day to move towards a goal is success, and you've heard me talk about this before, I decided that we were going to make a shift in how we produce and launch new content. So for the next several weeks, there will be no new episodes of this podcast that will air either on the YouTube channel or on any podcast platform. Because I have been working on, I record these in advance. So by the time you see this, know that I have been working on and will continue to work on updated branding, which some of you may have seen, updated pictures and things on social media or in the podcast pictures. You may see different pictures now. So I'm working on all of these, but in order to do that with quality, it's not going to work making podcast episodes once per week, because the quality of the content will suffer. So I'm going to be shifting this podcast to a season-based format, much like you see when you're watching TV shows or you see something get launched on maybe Netflix or YouTube or Hulu or another streaming platform like Prime Video. Sometimes you see they'll launch certain episodes, and they may launch 4 or 5 at a time. They may launch 1 per week, whatever. But what we're going to do is this podcast, the Strength, Yoga, and Freedom podcast, is going to have a 10 episode season that will begin on Tuesday, September the 12th of 2023, and it will run until December the 12th, 2023. Now, there are more than 10 weeks in that time frame, but there will be weeks where there are no new episodes because the content is what's important, not the amount of content that we're just shoving out there. That's not what's important. And so what we're going to do then is announce specific dates for the second season of this podcast when we get closer to that September 12th date. Now, all episodes that have previously aired after the 6 minutes a day program are going to be considered season 1. There's a lot of them, but we're going to consider that season 1. So you'll have your 6 minutes a day there, then there's season 1, and now we're going to be moving into season 2. This is the season that will premiere on September 12th. Now, I am also going to be delivering 4 yoga classes to you in season 2. So between September 12th and December 12th, there will be 4 yoga classes that I will put on the YouTube channel. And we'll have a kind of a power yoga 101, which is kind of a fundamentals to power vinyasa yoga. We'll do an advanced power yoga class where it's a little more challenging, a little bit faster, maybe a little more dynamic than a basic class would be. We'll also do a yoga sculpt class, which is where we use weights with our yoga flow to kind of tone up muscles in the arms, the back, the glutes, the legs, all that stuff. And then we will do one of my favorites, which is yin yoga, which is very passive, where you are on your mat, on the floor, laying in poses for anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, really stretching out and working your connective tissue to promote wellness and well-being in stillness. So those are the 4 classes, there's the word I'm looking for, classes, that we're going to produce for this upcoming season 2. So what's going to happen in the next few weeks? Well, you are still going to get a little bit of content here and there on the YouTube channel. You may see shorts here or there. You may see something small here and there. But I'm really concentrating over this month block that there is, where there will be no new episodes, in bringing you the most quality content in the 10 episodes that are coming between September 12th and December 12th. And then the plan is to restart again after the new year, because in the holiday time, we're going to reserve that holiday time for reflection and for being with ourselves and with those we love around us. And so all of the new content will be out before those holidays come, and then we will begin again in January, just like we do in yoga. We begin again and again and again. So what I encourage you to do is, number 1, follow me on Instagram, and the link is going to be in the show notes or the description of this video. I also have launched a brand new Facebook profile, which is not a personal profile. This is a business where all you can do is like or follow it. And it's just like Instagram, where all you're going to do is follow it. There won't be, like the friend request type situation. It's just that kind of business page. So you can check that out there as well if you're on Facebook and not on Instagram. And I'll leave the link for that below. And the other thing that I'll be posting on those specific platforms is reminders to maybe go back and listen to certain episodes, or go back and refresh yourself on concepts that maybe you need to revisit because something has happened in your life. We've talked about everything from narcissism in yoga, which is a huge one, and it was one of the most popular series that we did throughout the past year, narcissism. And it really relates to yoga in a big way. So you may need to go back if you find that someone in your life is acting a certain way and you might need a little reinforcement. Maybe that's where you go. Maybe you need to talk about fear. Maybe you need to think about courage. Maybe you need to think about routines and habits. Maybe you want to hear why I've stopped drinking and that story because you're considering stopping drinking. Maybe you want to talk about and think about addictions. Maybe you're thinking about why you're a people pleaser, or the fear that you have of letting go of control. I mean, there's so many episodes out there. So I really, really encourage you to back up and listen to things that you either have not heard or that you need reinforcement on. So there it is. And as we get closer to September 12th, keep an eye on all of my social media outlets. And if you are a member of the newsletter, you already know this information. In fact, a lot of what I'm saying here comes directly from the newsletter. So if you're a member of that newsletter, it's free. It's every Saturday it comes out. That comes every week with just a little personal note from me with some information about what's coming up and what I'm thinking about and what's going on in my life. You can subscribe to that in the show notes as well. So big stuff coming for September 12th. By the way, also one last thing I want to mention, there will be guests. In season 2, we have a couple people who are going to come onto the podcast. You may or may not have heard them once before. Maybe you have not. But guests are important because they give you a different viewpoint than just mine or yours or maybe your partners or your kids or whomever else is in your immediate circle. And so I'm so excited for this new season to premiere in the fall on September the 12th. And they will come out on Tuesdays, by the way, not all over the place. They will be on Tuesdays, but not every Tuesday. So I'll have that out to you soon. And until then, keep shining your light forward and keep enjoying what you have and the happiness that you're cultivating now and all the work you're doing because you deserve it. So I'll see you all very, very soon.